Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Um, I am here with Jeff and Jason. Rip is not going to be with us tonight. He has better things that he needs to attend to. I did post a little earlier today about Rip and how things are and how to get in touch with him if you need him the best way that he prefers. So, yeah, our thoughts and our prayers are with Rip. So, Jason, how are you?
Good. How about you guys?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's see. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is the production or restoring the production of the barred Plymouth Rock. Jason has done a lot of work with that bird, and so tonight he's going to tell us a little bit about that. Jason, can you take us back to how you first became involved with poultry and what drew you into that?
Yeah, it's a long story, but we'll fit it in here, no problem. I grew up on two farms, both grandparents' side, and there was always birds around. We were primarily beef farmers, and the chickens were just around. I really didn't pay any attention to them at all. And 10 years ago, we bought a little homestead, my wife and I, and the dream was, let's get some chickens. So we got a few chickens, just backyard flock. Started thinking about, okay, let's get some meat birds, and we got some meat birds. Of course, we went with the Cornish cross, and started doing a little bit of research and digging around on the internet, and thought, you know what, maybe we can do this and get a dual purpose bird, right? So started looking at the dual purpose birds. First thing I do is go to the hatchery about 9-10 years ago. Thought, what a perfect bird. Go to the hatchery, get the barred Plymouth Rock, start looking at them, get a little bit more interested in them, start looking on the internet and go, you know what? These things don't look like anything like a barred Plymouth Rock. And, so I went through the hatchery blues and, found out that, that's probably not the best place to start to get into the standard breeds. Then I decided, okay, I'm going into this. I'm going to do this. I love this bird. I go to a couple of shows around here. I find the best birds I could find. I knew nothing about these birds. Trust me, nothing about these birds. Go and talk to the first, second place guys. Pick the birds up. Tell them what I'm going to do. Did I ever get a lesson in hybrid vigor? I bought some show birds. The first year, the best thing that ever happened to me is a mink killed them. You hate to do that to these good birds, but I realized that some of these guys take it to the extreme so much in the ring that they breed and breed and breed, and then they cross right before a show, and get a bird that I know now is referred to as hybrid vigor. Beautiful bird. If you knew what you were looking at, the foundation of that bird seemed okay, but it really wasn't what I was looking for. So after the mink did the duty for me, I started talking, and there was a local farmer around here, and his granddaddy raised pigeons, and he raised barred rocks. So he kind of explained to me what it would take, what I needed to do, a little bit about line breeding, a little bit about spiral breeding, and I ended up getting some lines off of him. So that was kind of the foundation, Carrie, and then I got a little bit more involved and watching 360. Looking at some of the older, Jeff was on a lot of the older with Jim Aikens. What was it? Help me out there, Jeff. Was it Sustainable Poultry Network?
Yeah.
And I found this, and I thought, okay. I started reading a little bit more. Started doing a little bit more of my own research. Got to know Rip a little bit. Got to watch you guys and thought, okay, there's a little bit of a difference here between, a show bird and a production bird. So really and truly, that's what drove me. And I started talking to Rip, and Rip goes, I think you're doing a really good thing here. And so we started talking about the 1940 birds and that style of bird. And I started breeding and paying attention to the production qualities. And that's what I've been trying to do. There's been some challenges, of course, but that's the direction I was heading, and want to go still.
So, what about the Barred Plymouth Rock specifically made you say that's the breed I want to work with?
The neat thing about the Barred Plymouth Rock, a lot of people refer to it as the first chicken in America. That's not the truth, but it was the first standard. It was the first standard bird in America, and I think they were showing. Rip might shoot me for saying this because I might get the wrong dates, but I know I'm close. I think they started showing them in 1949 in Boston, up around Plymouth Rock, and then they developed it even further. And was it 1873? I think it was inducted into the first volume of the Standard of Perfection. And when I seen that exact bird, I thought, okay, back then they didn't have anything fancy. They were just probably a bunch of showmen and a bunch of farmers, and that's really what enticed me into that bird. It's just the history of it, where it came from. I think it was developed. It was developed by some English birds. I think some Cochins, some Brahmas, and Dominique, I believe. So.
Yep. Outside of the birds, what does a day look like for you on the farm?
Well, it's an early one. We have some livestock. We've got some pigs. I'm getting into quail. I've got 2 different breeds of birds. So, it's usually up close to daylight. Let the birds out. I myself, there's many different ways of doing it. I free range everything except for quail, except for the pigs. You don't want to free range pigs, but yeah, I free range the birds. So I get out, fill the feeders up, get the water fresh. I usually stand for 15 minutes and watch them, and that's the start of the day. And it really is quite easy. I got a couple of good babysitters through the day. I just let them out. My dogs are around, and really and truly just keep the water cold, keep it in the shade, and birds, perfect. They got perfect homing devices. They're usually all there when I go back and shut the door at night.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about chickens, just about any other animal will run off, but for a chicken to leave, it's got to be bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's food and water, they're not going anywhere.
No.
So, when you started your journey to restore the production traits in your line of the Plymouth Rocks, what all was involved in that? Tell us, like, why and the what behind all of that?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I guess I started to realize when I had the exhibition birds that they weren't fitting the bill on production. When I had the exhibition quality birds, and they were some pretty birds, you'd get 2 or 3 eggs a day, and when you felt the bird, it just didn't flesh. It just didn't feel fleshed out properly. And certainly when we tried, I don't know why they call hatchery birds dual purpose birds, because there's nothing to them. You can't go that route for your meat supply. You look like I don't even know what it would look like. I don't know if there'd be more meat on a quail. I think sometimes, but
those are getting jumbo these days.
Yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to do was get a bird that could be very calm. Be around. Got a son. Be around my son. Not an aggressive rooster at all. Had some aggression. Got rid of that. Get the egg production, It's a little different in my area with egg production, just because of the lighting, and it gets really cold, and I don't supplement the lighting. But I wanted to get those 5 eggs a day, a week. I wanted to be up in the 200 to 260 range bracket. And what I really wanted is I wanted that 7 to 8 pound hen, and I wanted that 10-pound rooster. And that's kind of where the light switch went off. And then I started reading a few books, and again, watching everything I could get my hands on about them. I started handling my birds more, and I could actually feel the development the different feel on the bird. You could feel the how the keel should be and how the fleshing should be, and that's kind of where I started. And then I had some conversations with Rip. We talked about it years ago, and he kind of pointed me in the right direction as to what he thought the perfect era of the bird was, and that was in the 1920 to 1940 pre-war. And he said back then they were in every backyard. The uniformity of them was fantastic. They all looked alike. The line was solid, and that's kind of the corner I took. And so I've been comparing my birds not to today's birds, but to the 1920 photos and those standards.
Yeah, I agree, because there's a lot of things that, I mean, like cars and everything else, they just don't build them like they used to.
Yeah.
People have focused on other stuff. And when I first started getting into birds again, I took a few year hiatus. And when I met Rip first, and up until then, I never really thought of why why do I need to handle my bird? It's a chicken. It feels like chicken. But Rip really taught me a lot about what to feel for, why to feel for it, the importance behind it, things to look for, when you're looking for that bird. And, Jeff, he taught me to look at the poop. I never looked at chicken poop before the last few years, but now I can look at it. Man, that bird's eating good, or that bird's got something going on. What traits do you specifically select for in your line? Egg numbers, laying consistency, the shell quality.
Yeah.
What kind of traits do you specifically breed for?
So I give a little up on the aesthetics to get on the fleshing. I want a really heavy fleshed bird. I want my focus on the hens. So I kind of go do this twofold. And what I focus on in the hens is, are they a good layer? Are they a good free ranger? Are they calm? Can I hold them? I pretend to look at that bird and feel that bird like it was defeathered. The last thing I look at are the feathers. I think Rip taught me a few years ago, look at the head, how important the head was. A good wide head will set the whole skeletal structure. And I want to reverse a little bit to get to the birds that we're producing now. I don't think I would have ever got there if it wasn't for Jeff Maddox, because of the nutrition. Like I was just a bag of feed was a bag of feed. You go to Tractor Supply or PV Mart, you buy you don't really realize the influence on feed, what it can do. And I learned that firsthand. I was fooling with protein, and I called Jeff. We actually messaged for one evening, and he gave me some time, and I found out real quick what happens when you put a little bit too much Freshie in the Kool-Aid, right? It had some pretty big eggs popping out, and within about a week, Jeff helped me correct that. I got a little carried away with the soybeans, let's say. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the production qualities of a hen. 5 eggs a week. I want the 7 to 8 pounds. Somewhere in the middle seems to be good, around 7.5. Yeah. I'm a little bit more particular on the width in the rooster. What I give up in the hen is I can make up on the rooster. And if you want, Carrie, if you want to play those 2 videos of the hen and the rooster, I say a few things in there that I'm talking about now.
All right.
Good evening, Poultry Keepers 360. I thought I would do a little demonstration on what I look for when I'm handling a bird, and look for what I want in a bird in my lines going forward. This is one of my breeding hens. Her feathering, I'm not really that concerned about. What I'm looking for are the production qualities and what would make a production quality for meat and eggs. So when I first grab a bird, I find laying them right on the keel seems to be the best for handling. I usually start at the back. I look for a wide back. And this bird is wide. You can see how wide she is all the way down through here. I usually take my hands and go around and find the pin bones in the bottom of the keel. The bottom of the keel should end behind the front, behind the legs. I then go up and feel the top of the keel. And I think Rip has mentioned this before. If you lay the bird down, you can feel how straight she is. I then examine the legs. I look for how much meat's on them. Then go around to the breast, and I can feel that this one's got a fairly heavy breast. She would be a good candidate, which she was a good candidate for breeding. I have a look at the head. You can see down the head. If you can see eyes, you know that bird doesn't have the skeletal structure right off the bat. I look for width. I can put my full fist between her legs without touching. And then I look for length. And this bird is a very long bird. You can see where my fingers are. That's 10, 11, 12 to the back. Her flatness is good. And the other thing that really is important is her calmness. I do an evaluation on the calmness as well. Are they going to freak out? Are they going to be fine around the farm, the barnyard, around equipment, around my dogs? So that's just a little demonstration of what I look for, and hope you enjoyed the viewing, and we'll see you back online. So I could add a little bit more of a comment on there as well. And I didn't really get into it, but I find that leg positioning is very important on these birds. If you don't get the exact location of where those legs should be, it just messes everything up from a skeletal standpoint. Mm-hmm. And another thing, when you're interpreting the standards, just an example. A barred Plymouth Rock says, and it's kind of funny, it says is to be long, but not too long. So if you get into those standards and go, what is not too long? Well, how
do you define that?
Yeah, well, the way I did it is that bird too long for its skeletal structure, and does it look funny? So
that makes sense.
That's what I look for. I don't know if there's a written explanation, but when you look at birds and some of them are just too long and some of them are too short, or their legs are up underneath their necks and they're all crunched up. So I think if I could summarize it, it's a balance.
Yeah.
Is that bird well balanced? So
that makes perfect sense, because before we aired, you were talking about how your first 15 minutes or so of the day you spend out there watching them, and during that time you can just scan your birds and identify those. And I'm guessing those are the ones you'll want to put over separate so you can grow them out for the crock pot.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Makes good sense.
Yeah.
So what kind of systems are you using to track the progress?
I don't breed a lot of birds, so it's really easy for me. And I didn't go wing bands. I should one day. I know I watched you guys use them. I know they're really good. I use lake bands. So I've got 3 breeding cages. That's all I've got. And I'm getting to the point where I'm going to be pedigree breeding. To get to this point, I had 5. It's been 5. I guess we're getting to the F6 where my chicks are. I use line breeding, inbreeding, whatever you want to call it. And basically, I used the hens. So I would have all the hens in the one cage, and they were all related. And then I would pick my best rooster and put them in with those hens. And I did that for 3 or 4 years. The last year, I did more of a pedigree, where I took a rooster a little bit farther away and put it with, the same family line, but a hen. So I got fewer eggs. I got a smaller hatch. But so far from what I see, it looks like I'm going to get. I know there's a 10% rule. I'd be thrilled if I was up at 15 or 20 for keepers, but we'll see. I won't know. I won't know for a while.
Well, for me, like, I think that 10% rule is more applicable in the earlier stages when in doing your breeding program. I like with you being 5-6 years into it, I personally think that you should start seeing higher percentages, because as you do that line breeding and you tighten up the gap and you cull everything that doesn't meet what you're looking for, I mean, you should see that.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see some uniformity. I'm having a little bit. The only differences I'm seeing now, Carrie, are in the feathering. Really, I mean, but I'm getting the structure is the same, the type is the same, the rise in the back is the same. So now it's feathering. I do have one fatal flaw though, that I will share that I think is very common with these dual purpose breeds, and it's actually I can't hit the time frames yet. So for the barred Plymouth Rock, it states quite clearly, in breeding for production, that they want that bird to wait in 26 to 28 months. They've even seen them as early as 23 weeks. Weeks. They've seen them lay as early as 23 weeks. I'm nowhere near that. I've had some discussions with people. I think it's my environment. We have some late hatches here, and I generally take them through the winter. But I'm not hitting peak weights. I want to say 8-9 months is where I'm at. So I got to work a little bit on that one. A lot.
Well, I think the more you watch Jeff and the more you learn a thing or two about nutrition and how to balance out the feed, when I first started, I thought the man was crazy. And he finally talked me into trying it, and I tried it. And once I started seeing that when I applied what he said, I got the results that he said. And for me, that made my line of American breasts that I have even better than what they were when I got them, because they were good when I got them. But now I'm hitting that, I can process a bird and have a 5-pound carcass in 14, 15 weeks max. Whereas before it wasn't quite that fast. But I think the more you dive down the rabbit hole of poultry nutrition, the closer you'll get to those days.
Jason, hold on a second, because you want peak weight at 23 weeks.
No. It's 20. Basically, in the standard of perfection, it's saying somewhere between 28 and 32 weeks is where they're hitting peak weight for the birds. They're a big bird, so that's a 10-pound rooster.
Okay, so for your bird, I would want to be 75 or 80% of mature weight by 24 weeks old. Okay, but that last 20% is such a slow addition. I don't, you're looking at close to a year to really see 100%. Okay, and I get what the standard's saying, but I don't think it's realistic. I don't know of a breed that actually hits its full mature weight. Okay, now you can hit cockerel weight, at 24 weeks and probably 8.5 pounds, but not the 10 pounds.
Yeah.
That last 2 pounds is it takes a while to get that last 20%. So, I mean, if you're there, it's going to be hard to get them 10 pounds at 24 or 20 or 30 weeks. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do it, but I mean, what are we? I'm worried. Okay, structurally, like skeletal wise, if I, if I give you those nutritional things to make that happen, are the legs going to be strong enough? Is the framework going to be strong enough? I mean, um, I'm happy to dive into it, with you and try and get you there, but it's, yeah. I think that's a lot for a large dual purpose breed to say, I don't know how they were doing that in the standard to say 28 to 32 weeks. So
I don't know.
A lot. Yeah.
I had that conversation with Rip as well, and he's having the same problems with his reds, and they're about the same. So we're right on par with each other's weights.
Okay.
And eggs, it's really hard for me to say about my egg production and when. And the reason being is I don't supplement with light. I have them all in the coop. We start losing light here real quick in October, and we're down to 7.5 hours, 7 hours of light, 7.5 hours of light through the winter. And I think it's good for the bird to leave them be, and not push them. So that's what I do. So I'm not really seeing eggs until our April, when we roll back around April, and they start popping the odd one out, and then away they go.
I mean, you're in a tough climate to do it, but in all honesty, if you consider doing like a Christmas hatch or a late November hatch,
mm-hmm.
you would change, a lot of both the growth characteristics and the egg characteristic. But man, I wouldn't want to brood in your country. I wouldn't want to have a brooder full of chicks in your country in December, January.
It's hard on the hydro bill. It's hard on the hydro bill, especially when you get down into the minus 40s. I've seen myself with 4 heat lamps and styrofoam on the bottom, and I just don't want to go there. It's outside the danger. I mean, there's no danger, but when you start putting that much heat to something, so
yeah, you could start a fire pretty quick. That would not be good.
Your breed and your environment. I think you almost have to write the standard for Central Ontario. Okay, it's not. Yeah. You're not down. You're not down here in the States where the breed was developed. Okay, and it's a completely different climate. So.
And the interesting thing about that, Jeff, is I've noticed I noticed the wattles, and I've noticed the comb getting a bit smaller.
Yep.
Up here as well.
They're adapting.
Yep.
So pretty soon you're going to have the Ontario barred rock, not the Plymouth barred rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. I mean, and then once you get it where you want it to be for your climate, you can market it that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
because everything's different up there.
Well, okay, it doesn't matter where you go, right? Like right now I'm sitting in the Philippines, right? And the same chickens that they have here, which are the American games, are a full pound and a half heavier in the US than they are here in the Philippines. But here it's 85 to 100 degrees with 85% humidity every day of the year, right? Not, no seasons really. So the bird climatizes. Everybody's bird's going to adapt to their environment, and that's what you're seeing happening. And it's not a bad thing. So I wouldn't worry about it. 10 years from now, just start selling your own breed, right? You got the Ontario Plymouth Rock or Ontario Barred Rock. It
is what it is.
I think so. There's nothing,
So tell us about it. Some unexpected roadblocks that you might have, either they be genetic or logistical.
Oh, I would say logistics are tight here. Just what Jeff was saying, in our climate, it's tough. Even in April and May this year, it was too cold. I didn't want to. It was really just too cold. I would have had to been home. That the eggs were freezing. So I've got a very small window to breed these birds, and so when it's go time, you have to acclimate the birds. You got to put them in there for 3 weeks before you actually start, collecting eggs. So I usually put them in April. Mid-May, I start collecting them for hatching, and you do 2-3 weeks of collecting eggs and hatching them, and then it's just what Jeff and I were just talking about. By the time you get the birds up to 50% weight, and you get into October, you're starting to get flurries, and they are feathered out enough to be resilient. But they spend a little bit more time in the coop, getting out of the cold weather. But I don't lose many birds at all to that. But I would say logistically, that would be the most challenging. That's the most challenging endeavor around here, Gary.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. How do you balance performance with things like temperament, thriftiness, seasonal hardiness, and feed conversion?
Aha. Well, I don't put up with a lot of nonsense in the hen house. we did buy these to put in the stew pot, and honestly, a small story about breeding aggression. For some reason, I had a recessive gene that came back on me, and it had a batch of roosters, and I actually didn't use any of them. I called them all. They just got more aggressive to the point where you're trying to sneak around the vehicles so you can get to the chicken coop, so you won't get stung from behind. So I don't put up with that too often. There's really a zero chance policy for aggression around here, just because we have the kids, and we don't need it. Food conversion, I really start paying a little bit more attention to that, and that's on my list of improvements. I'll be honest with you. I've got this year. The reason why I say that, we had some eggs that got out of hand, and there was a combination of overfeeding and a little bit too much protein in the feed, and that was in my the problem developed in my breeding boxes, and it happened real quick. I always wanted the standard says a mid-size egg. I call that a 60-ounce egg, 60-gram egg.
Right.
I'm sorry. And all of a sudden, I go out one day and 165, and okay, and then the other one's 67, and I'm going, maybe they just had a good time, right? Maybe, and I don't know what's going on here, right? And then you go out the next day, and the 167 and 168. Well, within a week, I was pushing some 70-gram eggs, and I got on Messenger with Jeff, and Jeff says, "How much you feeding them?" And I'm going, I hate to tell this guy, he's nutritionist guy, that I don't know, but I really don't know.
Yeah.
And he goes, you need to cut that down to about 3 ounces real fast. And I did. And believe it or not, it didn't take more than a week. And everything straightened itself back out. So I have cut back considerably. And I do measure now per bird. And I found that they got a little bit ornery at the 3 ounces. So I'm closer to Jeff told me they would. I'm a little bit closer to the 3.5, 4 ounce per bird, but everything seems to be balanced, and supplement them. I just kept, Jeff said, go buy a couple bales of alfalfa and throw it in the pen. And that seemed to take their mind off the food and give them something to do while they were in the breeding boxes. When they're free ranging, there's no problem. They seem to get enough on free range.
So is there any specific moment or breakthrough moment in your breeding program that really stands out where you just looked and said, aha, I think I figured this out?
I think it was this. I think it was the F5 hatch. The F5 hatch. I bred father back to a bunch of daughters, and a mother back to a son. And I think on my F5 Carrie, I seen more uniformity. Like I pay attention to which, and I mark them. I've got a red pen, a yellow pen, a green pen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I would have mixed them up this time, I would have been in real trouble. I wouldn't have been able to tell what came from what. And when I said that, when I thought that, you'd pick it up, you'd weigh it. Oh, that one's 7 pounds, and that one's 7.3 pounds, and that one's 6.9 pounds. It's like, we're on to something. So I think the F5, I just kind of stuck with the program. I listened to you guys, and I kind of bred and got rid of a few. You're not going to get rid of them all. A few recessive genes,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I'm getting into more. Okay, I got the bird where I want it physically, and now work on a little bit of aesthetics. Feathering, coloration,
Right.
Things like that.
All right. With that, hang on. We'll be right back.
We would like to take a short break to express our appreciation to the Fortrell Company for their sponsorship of the Poultry Keepers 360 Live programming. Fortrell has been a trusted name in sustainable farming and poultry nutrition for decades, and their commitment to providing high-quality, natural product aligned perfectly with the values we hold dear in our poultry community. Thank you, Fortrell, for partnering with us to empower poultry keepers everywhere. We're truly grateful for your dedication and support.
So there's lots of folks out there that are new to breeding. The last few years, it's been a really big craze. A lot of people that sell hatching eggs or chicks or whatever have really seen a huge uptick in that. So, obviously some of them people are probably feeling overwhelmed or whatever. What advice would you give someone that wants to improve their own birds just to improve them and make them better for the homestead?
Educate yourself, and don't be afraid to. I'm not speaking for anybody, but don't be afraid to reach out to people. Like, I'll volunteer me, probably you guys. The mistakes I've made personally, the mistakes I've made in selections and in just little things you do wrong, could save them years and years and years and years of working the birds to get them to where they need to be. So, read some books. I don't know if they want to get into the standards that deep, but handle your birds. That's another big thing. Don't be afraid to pick them up. They're not porcelain. You can feel them. Shove your fingers into places, into around muscles and back, and learn what a good bird is and what a bad bird is. And I think that would be a good starting point. Know the difference or know where you want to go. I've seen. I did it myself. I spent a couple years not knowing where I wanted to go with the birds, and I went nowhere. So,
when I first met Rip, I was asking him some questions like that, and he just kept saying, "Well, what are your goals?" And I would think about it, and we'd keep talking, and he finally said, "Listen, you really need to think about and figure out what your goals are, because what your goals are for your birds will dictate the direction you need to go, and everybody's different."
right.
And I was like, man, he's on to something. And it forced me to think and stop and sit back and look and listen, which I know that's something that we really don't. We want to think that we've got it under control, but we always don't. So
Yeah.
if you look at, you said you were on F5 now, if you go back to F1, when you first got the birds that you have now that you're working with, what's something that you changed your mind about since starting the project?
Oh, I would say, honestly, is keep more of a positive mind. I mean, which one? I mean, I guess when I was into F2, I don't know if you can, if you remember your F2s, but F2 just wants to make you quit. You know, you get some birds, and they shouldn't even look like that, really. But I guess in that regard, the best advice I could give anybody is build a game plan and stick to it. Don't change your mind. If you start changing your mind, you end right back up at square one. And I've done that with a line, and it's a reboot, right?
So let me ask this. Let's say I want to get some chickens and I want to make them better. Should I, before I even get my first chicken, figure out what my goals are, or wait till I can find some birds and figure out goals based on what I can find? Because you can't always find good birds.
No, I think Carrie, you need to know what you want to do before you go get them. Unless you just want backyard chickens, and that is fine too. Like, just having a backyard flock is the thrill to some people, and that's good. But I would say that what I would do is find the breed or the breeds you want to work with. Do some research about that breed. Make sure that it's suited to your area. That's one thing that when I went with the barred rocks, the bell didn't go off, right? I just thought barred rocks, they'll live everywhere, right? They don't like -40 very well. And they're not very smart when they drink in the wintertime at -40. They just keep going back. So, you have to watch that wattle damage. But yeah, do a little bit of research and what bird is going to work for you, and get the right advice. Get the advice from people that want to steer you in the right way versus sell you a bird. Because there's a lot of people that just want to sell you a bird.
Yeah, I've had people ask questions, and then they would say, "Well, so and so says this," and I'll say, "I mean, who? How do you know that person?" Well, they were somebody that I was talking to about buying birds. You may want to think about that.
Yeah,
that could have been the salesman hat that they were wearing, not the friend tell you about some birds now.
Right. Yeah, ribbons, and ribbons bring big money, right? So.
Yeah, they do. So for you, with you
they
and
don't
your
taste
bird,
good in the stew pot.
They don't. No,
they don't.
No.
Although I have a friend, Jennifer. She's won several ribbons with her Orpingtons. She's got some buffs, and they also taste pretty good in the stew pot.
Yeah.
So for you, how do you define success, or what does it look like with your restoration project, say 5 years from now?
I would say, as long as I don't recess I keep maintaining. If I could fix a trait every few years, I would think that would be successful, and not make the choices to let the recessive genes go back. And it's a really delicate balance, to do that. And you can fix one thing and break four, by trying to fix that one thing. And so I'd say a slow, steady approach, and small baby steps from here on in. Not to hurt the production, not to hurt the meat. Maintain my size of birds, and if I can do that and get my feather quality where I would like to see it, it's close, but it's not there yet.
I think can be tricky.
Yeah, Yeah, I'd say that's a success.
Yeah,
you
but I mean, working on your body structure, your conformation, right? Your station, all that, the width, those are harder to get than fixing the feathers,
Oh,
right?
they are.
So,
Yeah.
so you have to start with the foundational stuff, the production, the conformation, the width. Okay, those are by far more important for your journey, right? Where you're going, they're by far more important than what the bird looks like. Okay,
Yeah.
and you'll get there.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
to ask though, because of where you live, why didn't you consider something like a Favorel, right? Which is a winter layer. They're really kind of backwards in that they like to lay with shorter daylight and through the winter.
So the year after I started, you know why I didn't rip? Because I didn't know better. Or Jeff, I didn't know better. I didn't do the research ahead of time. And you are right. There for my area, I'll admit there are far better selections. Like the Wyandotte, the Chanticleer, which I do have on my second breed now. So I do have partridge Chanticleers, and yeah, they're winter layers as well. And Jeff, it was putting the cart before the horse type deal.
No, it's all good. I was just curious why you didn't,
No, it
go a
was.
different. Yeah.
And now that I've had so much work into it, it would really be hard for me to change. But
Huh.
I don't think I ever will. But you are 100% right, and that was a big error.
No. Don't. I'm not even considering changing. What at this
Yeah.
point? So you have a consistent egg
Yeah.
supply. Why not have
Yeah.
something like a winter layer, whether it's a Chanticleer or a Favorel? Okay, so your barred rocks cover you for eggs all through the summer, spring and summer, right? And then you have egg supply for the family through the
Yeah.
winter with your Favorels.
Yeah.
We cover both seasons, right?
Yeah. The look of the bird got me, Jeff. And I thought, geez, that's a pretty bird. And yeah, it's.
I mean, the others would be no challenge, right?
Oh.
So you got to have something that's challenging and keep it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Ted wants to know Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. What would be a good dual purpose bird for that part of the world? That's almost kind of like the central line of America. What do you guys think?
I mean, wouldn't the breast be a good choice for that neck of the woods? I mean
good genetic breasts will grow and produce anywhere.
Yeah.
Look, mine are molting and laying eggs. Make sense.
Well, I mean, they can be really hot in the summer. I mean, just horrible hot. And then they can be really, they can have some really cold weather in the winter. So the breast would be a good candidate. Sue says Rhode Island Reds. She's right. They can tolerate that heat pretty well.
Yeah, they can.
But, the breasts are white. So there's no color to fill the yard. That's the only downside that I can see is they're just white.
The leghorn can take a little bit of heat too, can it?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't get quite as much body, so if you're looking for something for the crock pot, the leghorn might leave you wanting. There's not a lot of flesh on the majority of the leghorn lines. So
I was gonna say for the leghorns, you would probably have a surplus of eggs.
Yeah,
but that would not do good for the other. Let's see here. What do you hope your line of barred rocks contributes to the breed's future?
Yeah, it's a good question. So as of now, just for security of my line, there's only one person, and it's a friend of mine that has a few of my birds, and they've got a couple of roosters and a dozen hens. But what I would like to do is breed this rock. Like Jeff said, it won't be an Ontario barred rock. Breed it to our that favors our weather a little bit, get it to back to the standard that I think, and everybody's going to have a different opinion on that, but back to the standards that really work as a farm bird, and then start letting them go. I don't know how many years down the road that's going to be. I have not sold a bird yet. I don't think they're ready. And, but when they get uniform enough that I'm comfortable, start getting them out on farms and homesteads. And I think that's the place to put these birds.
Sue says that breasts are hawk bait.
White.
I'd have to fire my dog for not doing his job if that did happen. But I'd like to see a hawk pick up an 8-pound chicken. That would be something. Yuke's Ontario Barred Rocks.
Yeah,
that has a ring to it.
I like it.
What is your favorite poultry book or resource?
Oh, so I can't say enough about this. The man that wrote these books, James E. Rice. I think that man, he's not around anymore, but he forgot more about this information than I'll ever know. But judging poultry for production, if anybody wants to get a thorough read about his interpretation on what to do, he goes into such detail about how he examines the vent, and then he goes into doing studies on eggs and evaluations on eggs, over 40 eggs with one bird. Real quality meat, fibers in the meat, and by far, excellent resource. It's going to take me about 5 years to digest it, but it's there.
All right. What's the first thing you do when you walk into the coop every morning?
Duck, usually, because they're all free range and they all come flying out the door at me about 300 mile an hour. So that's, yeah. So that, and I'm dead serious. So they love being outside. So when I use eave troughs a little bit off the ground, I've learned, sometimes I forget, but you never let the birds out before you feed. I go feed outside, get the water ready, and then it's like I'd say it's the Daytona 500 when you open that door. There's about there's 6 or 7 roosters coming at you, and not at you, but they're coming out, and 30 or 40 hens. So, but no, what I do, I sit there and I watch them every morning. Every morning, it's just my ritual. I let the dogs out. The dogs go do their thing. Well, they usually come in. They're out all night, but they come in. They go out with me. They sit. They watch. I pet the dogs and watch the birds. That's exactly what I do.
Got it. Let's see. What is one thing you do with your birds that makes you smile?
Just honestly, anything different you do, they're curious. They're so curious, it's the small things. Like I was cutting wood last week, and I knocked a maple tree down. Well, these birds, for the life of me, I can't figure out why they went after those leaves, right? But you just sit there. As soon as the tree hit, it's just like all these birds coming towards the tree, and they were picking the leaves off. So just really watching them, it just tickles me, how they interact with each other, how they interact with the chicks, how they interact, their different calls, watching the rooster. I always think you have a really good rooster. He's looking after the flock. My rooster never eats first. They always come out first, but they'll pick at the feed and make sure all the hens eat. But just watching the characteristics of the birds, Carrie, that's it for me.
Okay. All right. we have a couple other videos that we're going to show. Let's see here.
He's a really good rooster. I'll keep him to breed him. There's some of my better hens right there. Here are the standards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're really good. That one's getting beat up a little bit, but there's some of the better Chanticleers. There's a really good rooster right there. He's pretty. His cone's a little bit big, but not too bad. But there's why I have so many birds these days. And that's a really big rooster. I'm going to have a look at him. He might be too big outside the standard.
So if that one's too big outside of the standard, what happens?
Well, he meets Jesus.
Chicken nuggets.
Good evening again. Following my last inspection, I just grabbed a little hen chick. This hen chick is just starting to feather out. It's 4 weeks old. About every 2 weeks I grab them and have a look. And what I'm looking for are some real basics on these inspections. I'm just looking for split wing. I'm making sure that the bone structure is right. And I'm making sure that the keel is straight. I'm having a look at the head. These aren't going to be quite as cooperative as the hens, but nice wide head. I'm looking to see how it's developing. Checking the joints, checking the legs, making sure the toes are good. So I'm a little bit more particular in the traits at this stage with these little guys. And if there's something that I don't like about the bird, we'll either call it or give it away to a local farm. But this one's developing nice. You can tell that she's going to. She's worth keeping around, to at least the 12, maybe 20 week stage, and then we reassess them and see what we got.
All right. One last question I have for you. If there's one bird from your past that you wish you could have back, which one?
Oh, I do. I had a. I do. It was in 2021. And it was probably the best rooster that in my early days, I didn't know how good it was. But now that I've been able to handle some birds, it was probably the best rooster I've ever seen. He was a solid 10 pounds. And the thing was, there was no flaws. He didn't have any running in the feathers. He had side saddles. He had five points. His beak was there was no flaws. Like you'd pick up the bird and there was no flaws. And for some reason, I don't know what happened. It was just one of those things, taking the chance on free range. It was right when I was getting my livestock guardian dogs and they were pups. Fox came in and took him. And the last I seen him, there were tail feathers going on up the hill, but these things happen. The dogs just weren't old enough to look after it.
I understand. Well, that's all I have. Jeff, do you have anything?
Did you get any offspring from him? You got
I
anything?
I did. And I have his son still, and I do have the grandson, and they're real close. I think I posted a picture of them on Poultry Keepers 360 a while back of the generations. And
Any
those
daughters? Any daughters from it?
I do, and I still have one of the daughters, and she's one of the matriarchs. Yeah, and
You may
so
want to cross those to see if you can get what you want. But
that is what's going on happen this year, Jeff. I'm going to put my best rooster in with the matriarch, and see what I'm going to get in one pen, and then I'm going to do some families with some other roosters in the other one. And I honestly, there's no reason. Sometimes if you only have one good rooster, there's no reason to circulate the rooster either, right? You can do that. So
Let's see. I've been looking through over here, and I think we've got all the questions from the audience. And we're at our time. Jason, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you telling us about it.
Right.
Yeah. You take care.
Did a great
everybody.
job. Yeah.
All right. Y'all
Thanks,
have a good
Jason.
evening.
All right.